Amara Johnson thought she'd found love when the charming Bishop twins entered her life, but in their world of deception and power, love comes at a deadly price. Can she escape their web of lies and rewrite the ending Jennifer Parker never had? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The grand ballroom of the Silver Springs Country Club sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of New York's wealthiest residents. Amara Johnson stood near the entrance, clutching her portfolio close to her chest. At 28, she had worked her way up from nothing to become one of the city's most promising graphic designers, but tonight she felt like an outsider. "Just smile and network," she whispered to herself, smoothing down her red dress. The only designer piece she owned, bought on sale for occasions exactly like this charity gala. She had saved for months to buy a ticket to this event, knowing it would put her in the same room as potential clients who could help her open her own studio. What she didn't expect was to catch the attention of the infamous Bishop twins. "Excuse me," a confident voice said behind her, "but I couldn't help noticing you're the only person here who looks as bored as I feel." Amara turned to find herself face to face with Alexander Bishop, whose photos she'd seen countless times in business magazines. His perfectly tailored black suit probably cost more than her rent, but it was his warm smile that caught her attention. "I'm Alex," he said, extending his hand. "And you are?" "Amara Johnson," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "And I'm not bored, just focused." Alex laughed, a rich sound that drew attention from nearby guests. "Focused on escape routes? I've counted 3 myself." Before Amara could respond, another man approached, identical to Alex in looks, but completely different in presence. Where Alex commanded attention, this man seemed to fade into the background despite his equally expensive suit. "Brother," the second man said quietly, "Mother's looking for you." "Adrian, always the messenger," Alex said with a hint of irritation. "Tell her I'll be there shortly." He turned back to Amara with an apologetic smile. "Duty calls, but I'd love to continue our conversation. Have dinner with me tomorrow?" Amara felt Adrian's eyes on her, intense and unreadable. I'll have to check my schedule," she said. Alex pulled out a business card and wrote his personal number on the back. "I don't usually have to work this hard for a yes," he teased. After he walked away, Adrian lingered for a moment. "Be careful with my brother," he said softly. "He's used to getting what he wants." Then he too disappeared into the crowd, leaving Amara wondering if she'd imagined the warning in his voice. The next day, Amara tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to the Bishop twins. She'd done some research online. Alex was the face of Bishop Enterprises, known for bold business moves and lavish parties. Adrian was barely mentioned except in relation to his brother, described as the quiet twin who handled the company's legal affairs. She was about to call Alex's number when her phone rang, an unknown caller. "Miss Johnson?" It was Adrian's voice. "I hope you don't mind, I got your number from the gala guest list." "Is everything okay?" Amara asked, surprised. "I wanted to apologize for last night, and I was wondering if you'd like to get coffee. There's a bookstore cafe I think you'd enjoy." Amara found herself agreeing before she could think it through. One coffee couldn't hurt, right? She met Adrian at the Reading Room, a cozy bookstore tucked away from the busy streets. He was already there browsing the poetry section, looking more relaxed in a simple sweater and jeans. "I come here to escape sometimes," he admitted, leading her to a quiet corner. "From the business, from Alex's shadow, from everything." There, conversation flowed easily, touching on books, art and dreams. Adrian listened intently as she talked about her goals for her own studio, asking thoughtful questions that showed genuine interest. The afternoon was interrupted by another call. Alex, wondering why she hadn't responded to his dinner invitation. That night, alone in her apartment, Amara stared at her phone. 2 invitations, 2 very different men. Alex offered excitement, a chance to step into a world she'd only dreamed of. But Adrian had seen her, really seen her. As she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "I don't give up easily. Let me show you my world." Minutes later, another message arrived. This one from Adrian. Thank you for today. The bookstore felt less lonely with you there. Amara fell asleep wondering if it was possible to be drawn to two men at once, not knowing that her life was about to become more complicated than she could imagine. The Bishop twins had noticed her, and in their world, nothing was ever simple. Little did she know, the charming differences between the brothers masked darker secrets that would soon surface, testing not only her heart, but her judgment of character, and possibly even her safety. A week had passed since the charity gala, and Amara's life had turned upside down. Alex called her every day, sending expensive gifts to her small apartment. Flowers, jewelry, even a designer dress she was afraid to touch. Adrian, meanwhile, kept things simple with thoughtful text messages and coffee shop meetings. You have to see this, Alex said one evening, leading Amara into the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan. The maitre d' bowed slightly, recognizing him immediately. I reserved the whole rooftop just for us. Amara's heart raced as they stepped onto the candlelit terrace. The entire New York skyline sparkled before them, and a private orchestra played soft music. Alex, this is too much, she said, feeling overwhelmed. He pulled out her chair with a confident smile. Nothing is too much for a woman like you. I've been asking around about your work. You're talented, Amara. Let me help you open that studio you dream about. The offer hung in the air between them. I want to do it on my own, she said firmly. Of course, Alex reached for her hand across the table. But everyone needs a little push sometimes. Just think about it. The next morning, while working on designs for a client, Amara got an unexpected visit at her home office. Adrian stood at her door holding 2 cups of coffee and looking troubled. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said. I was in the neighborhood. Amara knew it wasn't true. Her apartment was nowhere near the Bishop offices, but she invited him in anyway. I heard about Alex's dinner, Adrian said, sitting on her worn couch. He's always been the showman, and you've always been the quiet one, Amara asked. Adrian's eyes darkened. Someone has to be. Alex. He's not always what he seems, Amara. Before she could ask what he meant, her phone buzzed. Another message from Alex, inviting her to a weekend at his beach house. Adrian saw the text and stood up abruptly. Just be careful, he said, heading for the door. My brother likes to collect beautiful things, but once he has them, he loses interest quickly. That afternoon, Amara met her best friend Teresa for lunch. Girl, you're playing with fire, Teresa said, after hearing about the twins. 2 brothers, that never ends well. It's not like that, Amara protested. We're just friends. Teresa raised an eyebrow. Friends don't send $1,000 dresses or show up unannounced with coffee. You need to choose before someone gets hurt. But choosing seemed impossible. Every time Amara thought she was leaning toward Alex's exciting world, Adrian would say something that touched her soul. And every time Adrian's quiet intensity drew her in, Alex would sweep her off her feet with another grand gesture. The decision was made harder when both brothers showed up at her first big client meeting. Amara was presenting her designs to a major advertising firm when she spotted them in the conference room. What are you doing here? She whispered during a break. Supporting you, Alex said with a charming smile. I know people at the firm. Came to stop him from interfering, Adrian added quietly. You don't need his influence, Amara. Your work speaks for itself. The tension between the brothers was thick enough to cut with a knife. When Amara returned to her presentation, she could feel their eyes on her. Alex's proud and possessive, Adrian's concerned and protective. She got the contract on her own. Merit, but the celebration was awkward. Alex insisted on taking her to dinner while Adrian hung back, watching with worried eyes. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Her phone lit up with a text from Alex. You were amazing today. Let me take you away this weekend, just you and me. Minutes later, Adrian messaged, Congratulations, you earned this success. Don't let anyone tell you different. As she lay in bed, a strange thought occurred to her. The twins never appeared in public together, except when it involved and sometimes the way they looked at each other wasn't just brotherly rivalry. There was fear there and something darker. Her phone buzzed again. An anonymous message. Ask Alex about Jennifer Parker. Ask Adrian where he really was that night. Amara sat up, her heart pounding. Who was Jennifer Parker? And what night? For the first time, she wondered if Teresa was right. Maybe she wasn't just playing with fire. She was walking into an inferno. The next morning, she decided to do some digging, but searching for Jennifer Parker would lead her down a path she wasn't prepared for, into the darkest corners of the Bishop family secrets. The name Jennifer Parker haunted Amara's thoughts. After hours of searching online, she finally found something. A small newspaper article from 5 years ago. Jennifer Parker, age 24, had died in what was ruled an accidental fall from a balcony at a Bishop Enterprises party. Teresa. Look at this, Amara said, showing her friend the article at their regular lunch spot. She was exactly my age. Teresa leaned forward, lowering her voice. Didn't you say Adrian warned you about Alex? Maybe this is why. But when Amara dug deeper, she found photos from the party. Adrian had been there too, standing in the background, watching Jennifer with the same intense gaze he now turned on Amara. Her phone rang, making her jump. It was Alex. Cancel your plans for tonight, he said cheerfully. I'm taking you to the opera. Alex, I need to ask you something, Amara started. Did you know Jennifer Parker? The line went silent for a moment. Who told you that name? His voice had changed, all charm gone. Does it matter? It was Adrian, wasn't it? Alex's tone turned harsh. My brother's playing his games again. Listen to me, Amara. Stay away from him. He's not what you think. What do you mean? Just trust me, Alex said, his smooth manner returning. I'll pick you up at 7. We'll talk about everything. But Alex didn't show up at 7. Instead, Amara found Adrian waiting outside her apartment building. Alex sent you, she asked. Adrian shook his head. He's lying to you, Amara. About everything. About Jennifer. Then tell me the truth. Not here, Adrian looked around nervously. Come with me. He drove them to the old Bishop family mansion outside the city. The huge house was dark except for one room on the top floor. Mother lives here alone now, Adrian explained as they walked through the empty halls. She never leaves that room. Anymore. Not since Jennifer. In Adrian's old study, he pulled out a box of newspaper clippings and photographs. Jennifer wasn't just at a company party. She was Alex's fiancée. Amara's hands shook as she looked through the photos. Jennifer Parker had been beautiful, with the same dark skin and artistic spirit as Amara. What really happened to her? Adrian's face turned pale. She found out something about Alex, something terrible. She threatened to expose him. The night she died. He stopped, his hands trembling. I tried to help her, but I was too late. Why didn't you go to the police? Alex owns half the police force in this city, and he made sure all evidence pointed to me. Said he'd turn it over unless I played along. A floorboard creaked behind them. They turned to find Alex standing in the doorway, his usual polished appearance disheveled. Always the victim, aren't you, brother? Alex's voice was cold. Tell her the rest. Tell her about the letters you wrote to Jennifer. Tell her about your obsession. How you're twisting everything. Adrian stood up. Like you always do. Am I? Alex pulled out his phone. Should I show Amara the security footage from that night? The one that shows you following Jennifer to the balcony? Amara backed away from both of them. I need to leave. No one's leaving. Alex blocked the doorway. Not until we settle this. Suddenly, a woman's scream echoed through the house. That's Mother, Adrian said, running toward the sound. Amara used the distraction to slip past Alex. She ran through the dark halls, her heart pounding. Behind her, she could hear the brothers arguing. You're ruining everything again, Alex shouted. She deserves to know the truth, Adrian yelled back. Amara found her way to the front door and ran to her car. As she drove away, her phone exploded with messages from both brothers. From Alex. Let me explain. Everything I did was to protect you from him. From Adrian. Don't trust him. I can prove everything. When she got home, Amara found a package waiting at her door. Inside was an old diary with Jennifer Parker's name on it. A note fell out. The truth is in here, but be careful who you tell. History has a way of repeating itself. That night, Amara sat up reading Jennifer's diary, each page more disturbing than the last. Jennifer had written about both brothers. Alex's controlling behavior, Adrian's mysterious warnings. It was like reading her own story, written 5 years too early. The final entry chilled her to the bone. If anything happens to me, know this. One of the Bishop brothers is not who he pretends to be. I thought I could tell the difference between the good twin and the bad one. I was wrong. Amara closed the diary, her hands shaking. The next morning she had a meeting scheduled with Alex to discuss funding her studio. She also had coffee plans with Adrian to hear his full story. One of these men was lying. One of them was dangerous, but which one? Amara didn't sleep that night. Jennifer's diary sat on her nightstand like a ticking bomb. At dawn, she called Teresa. "I can't keep reading this alone," she said when her friend arrived with coffee. "It's too much." Teresa sat with her on the couch, flipping through the diary's pages. "Listen to this," she said. "Alex bought me another expensive gift today. He says it's because he loves me, but sometimes I think it's just to show he owns me." Amara looked at the designer dress Alex had sent her, still hanging untouched. In its garment bag. "Keep reading. Adrian warned me again today. He seems scared. But when I ask him what he's afraid of, he just says to be careful around Alex. I'm starting to think Adrian might be the one I need to worry about." The doorbell rang, making both women jump. It was a delivery, another gift from Alex. Inside, the small box was a diamond necklace and a note. "For tonight's dinner, don't disappoint me." "You're not going," Teresa said firmly, but before Amara could respond, her phone rang. It was Adrian. "Don't meet Alex tonight," he said, his voice urgent. "I found something in Jennifer's old apartment, something that changes everything." Her apartment, after 5 years? The family kept paying the rent. Alex said it was out of respect, but now I know he was hiding something. "Meet me there in an hour." Teresa grabbed the phone. "She's not meeting either of you anywhere. Back off." "Please," Adrian's voice softened. "I know how this looks, but Amara's in danger. The same pattern is starting again." Against Teresa's advice, Amara agreed to meet Adrian, but at a busy coffee shop, not Jennifer's apartment. When she arrived, both Bishop brothers were there. "I should have known you'd run to him," Alex said, standing up from his table. "That's your game, isn't it, Adrian? Playing the concerned protector?" "This isn't a game," Adrian shot back. "Tell her what you did to Jennifer. Tell her about the recordings." Alex's handsome face twisted with anger. "What about your recordings? The ones you made watching her from your car?" Other customers started staring. Amara tried to leave, but Alex grabbed her arm. "Let go of me," she said firmly. "You're making a scene," Adrian warned his brother. "A scene?" Alex laughed bitterly. "Like the scene you made the night Jennifer died? When you couldn't stand that she chose me?" A security guard approached their table. "Is everything okay here?" Amara pulled away from Alex. "I'm leaving. Both of you stay away from me." But as she walked out, she heard Adrian call after her. "Check the diary again, page 43. There's something you missed." At home, Amara found the page. A small key was taped inside with an address written in Jennifer's handwriting. Below it were the words, "Insurance in case the worst happens." Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jennifer tried to run too. Look where that got her. Scared, Amara packed a small bag. She'd stay with Teresa until she figured out what to do. But when she opened her apartment door, Alex was waiting in the hallway. "Going somewhere?" he asked smoothly. "That's not very grateful after everything I've done for you." "Leave me alone, Alex." His charming smile disappeared. "You know what your problem is, Amara. You're just like Jennifer. Too stubborn to accept a good thing when you see it." "Is that why she died?" "Because she was." "Stubborn?" Alex stepped closer. "My brother's been filling your head with lies. Jennifer's death was an accident. But if you keep pushing this..." He let the threat hang in the air. Suddenly, Adrian appeared at the end of the hallway. "Get away from her, Alex. How did you know she'd be leaving?" Alex turned to his brother. "Unless you're still playing your old stalking games." Amara used their confrontation to slip back into her apartment and lock the door. Through the peephole, she watched the brothers face off. "You can't keep doing this," Adrian said. "I won't let you hurt her like you hurt Jennifer." "Hurt her?" Alex laughed. "Look in the mirror, brother. We both know what really happened that night, and if Amara's not careful, history really will repeat itself. After they left, Amara sat on her floor, shaking. The key from the diary felt heavy in her pocket. Whatever it opened, Jennifer had thought it was important enough to hide. Tomorrow, she would find out what was behind that mysterious address. But tonight she had another task. Hidden in her closet was a small camera Teresa had bought her for protection. Amara set it up facing her front door. If either Bishop brother was watching her, now she'd be watching back. The game they were playing might be dangerous, but she wasn't going to be a helpless pawn like Jennifer. Her phone buzzed one last time that night, a message from Teresa. Just found something weird. That article about Jennifer's death, it's been deleted from every website. Someone's erasing her story. The address from Jennifer's diary led to an old storage facility on the outskirts of town. Amara stood in front of Unit 227, the key trembling in her hand. Teresa waited in the car, engine running, ready for a quick getaway if needed. "I don't like this," Teresa had said on the drive over. "What if one of them followed us?" The storage unit door creaked open. Inside, a single box sat in the center of the empty space. Amara recognized Jennifer's handwriting on the label. The truth about the Bishop brothers. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were photos, letters, and a USB drive. But before she could look closer, she heard footsteps. "I knew you'd find this place eventually," Adrian said from the doorway. "But we need to hurry. Alex has people watching the building." "How did you know about this?" Amara clutched the box to her chest. "Because I helped Jennifer rent it," Adrian stepped inside. "The night before she died, she told me she had evidence that would destroy Alex, but she never told me what it was." Amara backed away. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm trying to protect you like I tried to protect her." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "I loved Jennifer, not the way Alex did. Possessive, controlling. I loved who she really was. And when I see you, it's like history repeating itself." A car door slammed outside. Adrian peered through the dirty window. "He's here, we need to go." "I'm not going anywhere with you." Amara pulled out her phone to call Teresa. "Fine, then take the box and run. But whatever you do, don't let Alex see what's inside." Amara ran to Teresa's car, the box under her arm. As they sped away, she saw Alex and Adrian in her mirror arguing in the parking lot. Back at Teresa's apartment, they spread the contents of the box across the floor. The photos showed Alex at various parties, getting aggressive with women who looked uncomfortable. In one series of pictures, he grabbed someone's arm just like he'd grabbed Amara's at the coffee shop. "Look at these letters." Teresa held up a stack of papers. "They're from other women, all complaining about Alex stalking them after they broke up with him. But Adrian said Alex had evidence against him," Amara remembered, "about watching Jennifer from his car. Maybe that's what's on the USB drive." They plugged it into Teresa's laptop. Inside was a video file labeled "The Night Before." The footage showed Jennifer in her apartment looking scared. "If you're watching this," she said to the camera, "something's happened to me. I thought I could handle this on my own, but I was wrong. The Bishop family has too much power, too many secrets." She held up a folder. "In here is proof of everything. The women Alex hurt, the bribes to keep them quiet, the photos Adrian took trying to catch him. But there's something else, something worse." Jennifer looked over her shoulder. "I hear someone at the door. I have to hide this, remember. The Bishop family will do anything to protect their reputation, even kill." The video ended. Jennifer had died the next night. Amara's phone rang. "Alex." "Where are you?" he demanded. "And where's the box?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games with me, Amara." His voice turned cold. "Adrian might think he's protecting you, but he's only making things worse, like he did with Jennifer." "What did happen to Jennifer, Alex? Why don't you ask my brother about the shrine he kept, all those photos he took without her knowing?" Adrian was obsessed with Jennifer. When she chose me, he snapped, "You're lying." Check your email, I just sent you something interesting." A new email popped up on Amara's phone. The attached photos showed Adrian following Jennifer, taking pictures from his car. In some, he was outside Amara's apartment too. "He's doing the same thing to you," Alex said. "He's sick, Amara. Let me protect you from him." After hanging up, Amara sat in silence. The box held two different stories. In one, Alex was a dangerous man who silenced women who threatened him. In the other, Adrian was a stalker who couldn't let go. "We need help," Teresa said. "Real help, not just us playing detective. But who can we trust? The police work for? The bishops? The newspapers won't touch the story." Teresa picked up Jennifer's diary. "What about her family? They must have asked questions after she died." Amara's phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Don't believe what Alex sent you. I can explain everything. Meet me at the mansion. Mother wants to talk to you." Then another from Alex. "Stay away from the mansion. Adrian's not well. He's off his medication again." The sun was setting outside Teresa's window. Somewhere in this web of lies was the truth about Jennifer's death, but finding it meant putting herself in the path of whoever had killed her. "I have to go to the mansion," Amara said finally. "Mrs. Bishop was there that night. She knows what really happened." "Then I'm coming with you." Teresa stood up. "We'll set up a live video call with my phone. If anything happens, it'll all be recorded." As they drove to the Bishop mansion, Amara thought about Jennifer's last words on the video. The Bishop family will do anything to protect their reputation, even kill. She was about to find out if history really would repeat itself. The Bishop mansion loomed against the darkening sky like something out of a nightmare. Teresa parked her car behind some trees, her phone already recording. "If I don't text you in an hour, call the police," Amara told her friend. "I don't care if they work. For the Bishops, call anyway." "I still think this is crazy," Teresa said. "We should just take Jennifer's evidence to a newspaper out of state." But Amara was already walking toward the house, Jennifer's box clutched to her chest. Before she could ring the bell, the door creaked open. "I've been expecting you," Mrs. Bishop said softly. She was a thin woman in an expensive silk robe, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. "Come to my room. It's the only place they don't listen." Amara followed her up the grand staircase, past photographs of the twins as children. In every picture, they wore identical outfits, identical smiles. Mrs. Bishop's room was like a museum, frozen in time. Heavy curtains blocked the windows and the air smelled of old perfume. She sat in a velvet chair, gesturing for Amara to take the one across from her. "You have Jennifer's things," she said, eyeing the box. "I wondered where she hid them." "You knew about this?" "I know everything that happens in this house." Mrs. Bishop's hands trembled as she poured tea. "Just like I know why you're here. You want to know which of my sons killed Jennifer." Amara's heart stopped. "So it wasn't an accident?" "Nothing in this family is ever an accident." Mrs. Bishop stared into her teacup. "The curse of twins. You see, one good, one evil. But which is which? Even a mother can't always tell." "What do you mean? They switch, you know." "Since they were children. Alex pretending to be Adrian, Adrian pretending to be Alex. A little game they played, but games can turn dark." A floorboard creaked outside the room. Mrs. Bishop lowered her voice. "The night Jennifer died, she thought she was meeting Adrian. But was it really him? Or was it Alex wearing his brother's clothes?" "Mother," Adrian's voice called from the hallway. "Are you up here?" "Don't trust either of them," Mrs. Bishop whispered urgently. "The one you think is good might be the worst of all." Adrian appeared in the doorway, his face tight with concern. "Mother, you should be resting. And Amara, you shouldn't be here." "She has Jennifer's box," Mrs. Bishop said calmly. Adrian's eyes widened. "Give it to me, now." "Don't," Mrs. Bishop warned. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Alex burst in, out of breath. "Step away from her, Adrian." The brothers faced each other across the room, identical faces twisted with anger and fear. "Tell her the truth," Adrian demanded. "Tell her what you did to Jennifer." "Me?" Alex laughed harshly. "Tell her about the shrine in your apartment, the pictures you took, the letters you wrote but never sent." "Both of you, stop." Amara clutched the box tighter. "Mrs. Bishop, tell me what really happened that night." But the old woman just smiled sadly. "Which night? The night Jennifer died? Or the night they switched places? Ask them about the party. Ask them who was really wearing Adrian's clothes." "Mother, you're confused," Alex said smoothly. "Am I?" Mrs. Bishop stood shakily. "Then why did I see you changing clothes in the garden?" After Jennifer fell, or was that Adrian? Even I couldn't tell anymore. Both brothers went pale. "Show them," Mrs. Bishop told Amara. "Show them what's in the box." Amara pulled out the USB drive. Jennifer left a message. She said she had proof of everything. "Give it to me," both brothers said at once, stepping forward. "Stay back," Amara warned, backing toward the door. "Teresa's recording everything. If anything happens to me, the whole world will know." "Smart girl," Mrs. Bishop nodded. "Smarter than Jennifer. She trusted too easily." "Because she thought she knew which brother was which," Amara realized. But she was wrong, wasn't she? The one she trusted was the one who killed her. A phone rang, Teresa's signal that an hour had passed. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. "You called the police?" Alex's face darkened. "Teresa did," Amara said, "and she has copies of everything in this box." "It's over," Adrian told his brother. "We can't hide it anymore." "Hide what?" Alex turned on him. "Your obsession? The way you followed her? Or should we tell Amara what really happened when you found out Jennifer was wearing a wire that night?" Mrs. Bishop started laughing, a high, eerie sound. "Let them fight. They've been fighting since the womb, one good, one evil, but which is which, even they don't know anymore." The sirens grew closer. Blue lights flashed through the windows. "Last chance," Amara said, her voice shaking. "Which one of you killed her?" The brothers looked at each other, then back at Amara. In the dim light, their faces were mirror images of guilt and innocence, truth and lies. And then one of them reached for the gun hidden behind Mrs. Bishop's chair. Time seemed to freeze as Alex pulled out the gun. His hand shook as he pointed it first at Adrian, then at Amara. "Nobody's going anywhere," he said, his charm replaced by cold fury. "Give me the box and your phone." "Alex, think about what you're doing." Adrian stepped in front of Amara. "Oh, now you want to play protector?" Alex's laugh was bitter. "Like you protected Jennifer." Mrs. Bishop remained eerily calm in her chair. "Show them, Alexander. Show them what you showed me that night." Alex reached into his pocket with his free hand and pulled out a phone. "Want to see who the real villain is, Amara? Watch this." He pressed play on a video. The footage was dark and grainy, but Amara could make out Jennifer standing on the mansion's balcony, arguing with someone wearing Adrian's favorite sweater. "I'm going to tell everyone," Jennifer's voice was clear in the recording. "About the women, the threats, everything." "You're making a mistake," the man in Adrian's sweater said. "I trusted you," Jennifer cried. "I thought you were the good one." The man moved toward her. Jennifer stepped back, too close to the railing. "No one will believe you," the man said. "They'll blame Alex. They always blame Alex." The video ended just as Jennifer started to fall. "See?" Alex's hand tightened on the gun. "Adrian killed her and let everyone think it was me." But Adrian was shaking his head. "Play it again," he said quietly. "Show Amara what you did after. You changed clothes." Mrs. Bishop started laughing again. "My clever boy's always switching places, but mothers know, we always know." Amara's phone buzzed. Another text from Teresa. "Police are surrounding the house." "It wasn't Adrian in that video, was it?" Amara looked at Alex. "It was you wearing his clothes. You knew everyone would believe Adrian was the quiet, obsessed one, the stalker. You set him up." "Shut up." Alex's mask of control cracked. "Jennifer was mine. She belonged to me, but she wanted to leave, to ruin everything we built. Just like you're trying to do." "Put down the gun, brother," Adrian said softly. "Mother kept your secret for 5 years. I kept quiet to protect her, but I can't let you hurt anyone else." Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Sirens wailed outside. "It's over, Alex," Amara said. "Teresa's already sent copies of everything to the police. Jennifer's evidence, the video, all of it." Alex's face twisted with rage. "You think the police can touch me? I own them, just like I owned Jennifer, just like I'll own you." He lunged for Amara, but Adrian tackled him. The gun went off, the shot deafening in the small room. Mrs. Bishop screamed. Amara dropped to the floor as the brothers fought. The gun skidded across the hardwood, stopping at Mrs. Bishop's feet. "Always fighting," the old woman said, picking up the weapon. "Since the day they were born. But a mother knows which son is truly evil." She pointed the gun at Alex. "Mother, please." Alex's voice changed, becoming soft and pleading. Adrian's lying to you. I'm the good son, remember? I'm the one who takes care of you. No more lies. Mrs. Bishop's hand was steady now. No more pretending. I saw you that night, Alexander. Saw you change into Adrian's clothes. Saw you push that poor girl. A mother always knows her children's sins. Police burst through the bedroom door, guns drawn. Everyone freeze. In the chaos that followed, Teresa pushed through the officers to reach Amara. They hugged tightly as Alex was handcuffed, still protesting his innocence. The good twin, the bad twin, Mrs. Bishop said softly as the police led Alex away. But evil wears many faces, doesn't it, Alexander? Later that night at the police station, Amara watched through one-way glass as Alex confessed everything. How? He'd stalked and threatened women for years. How he'd worn Adrian's clothes to confuse Jennifer. How he'd planned to do the same to Amara. He switched their identities so often, even he started believing his own lies, the detective told her. But the evidence in Jennifer's box broke the case wide open. Text messages, photos, witness statements. She documented everything. Adrian sat quietly in the waiting room, looking lost. I should have stopped him years ago, he said when Amara joined him. Should have told the truth about that night. Why didn't you? He's my twin, my other half. I thought I could save him, help him change. Instead, I almost let history repeat itself. Amara took his hand. But this time the story has a different ending. Teresa appeared with coffee for everyone. The morning news is already running the story. Bishop twin arrested for murder. Your design business is probably going to get a lot of attention. Amara thought about her studio plans, her dreams that seemed so simple before she met the Bishop twins. I think I need a break from the spotlight. We both do, Adrian agreed. Mrs. Bishop had been taken to the hospital for observation, but not before telling the police everything she'd kept secret for 5 years. Her statement was the final nail in Alex's coffin. As dawn broke over the city, Amara sat between Teresa and Adrian, watching the sunrise. The nightmare was over, but its lessons would stay with her forever. Love, she'd learned, could wear many faces. The trick was seeing past the masks to the truth beneath. 2 weeks after Alex's arrest, the Bishop family's carefully built world was falling apart. News vans still camped outside the mansion, hoping to catch a glimpse of Mrs. Bishop or Adrian. Headlines screamed about the twisted twin case as reporters dug up more of Alex's victims. Amara sat in her small office staring at the pile of magazines on her desk. Her face was on every cover, alongside headlines like "The Woman Who Brought Down a Dynasty" and "Love, Lies and Murder, the Bishop twin scandal." You need to eat something, Teresa said, bringing in sandwiches. Being a local celebrity is no excuse to skip lunch. I didn't want any of this attention, Amara sighed. I just wanted to build my design business. Well, your website crashed from too many visitors, so I'd say business is booming. The phone rang, another reporter wanting an interview. Teresa answered it with the same response she'd been giving for days. No comment. Ms. Johnson is not discussing the case. But it wasn't a reporter. It was Adrian. Can we talk? He asked when Amara took the phone. Mother's asking for you. At E. The hospital. Mrs. Bishop looked smaller somehow, more fragile. The doctors said the stress had triggered a minor stroke, but her mind was clear as ever. There you are, she smiled when Amara entered the room. My dear brave girl, sit with me. Adrian stood by the window, looking out at the reporters below. He'd lost weight and dark circles shadowed his eyes. The lawyers say Alex is going to plead guilty, he told them. They found more evidence in his private office. Videos, photos, journals. He documented everything. Of course he did, Mrs. Bishop said softly. He always loved having power over people. Even as a child, he would pretend to be Adrian to get other children in trouble. Why didn't you stop him? Amara asked. Because I was a coward, the old woman's eyes filled with tears. I thought if I ignored it, he would change. Instead, I let him become a monster. Adrian moved to his mother's bedside. It wasn't your fault. No. It was. Mrs. Bishop took his hand. I knew which son was which, even when you switched places. I knew Alex was lying about Jennifer, but I stayed quiet to protect the family name. My silence killed that poor girl as surely as Alex's hands did. Nurse came in to check Mrs. Bishop's vitals. While they waited in the hallway, Adrian turned to Amara. "I'm selling the company," he said, "going to turn it into a foundation for victims of domestic violence. It's time the Bishop name did some good in the world." "What about you?" "I need to get away for a while. Too many ghosts in this city." He hesitated. "I understand if you never want to see me again. After everything that happened..." "Adrian," Amara touched his arm. "You're not your brother, aren't I? We share the same blood, the same face. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see him staring back at me. But you're not him. You tried to protect Jennifer and me. You kept quiet to protect your mother, not yourself." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "I keep thinking about Jennifer. If I'd been braver, spoken up sooner..." "Stop," Amara said firmly. "Alex is responsible for his own actions, not you, not your mother." Teresa appeared with coffee for everyone. She'd appointed herself Amara's unofficial bodyguard since the arrest, screening calls and keeping reporters away. "Your 3 o'clock meeting called to confirm," she told Amara. "That big advertising firm wants to move forward with the campaign." "Go," Adrian said when Amara hesitated. "Life has to go on. Mother understands." But as Amara turned to leave, Mrs. Bishop called out, "Wait, there's something you should know." They gathered around her bed as she pulled an old photograph from her robe pocket. It showed the twins as teenagers standing in front of the mansion. "Look at their eyes," she said. "Alex is smiling, but his eyes are cold. Adrian's smile is smaller, but it reaches his eyes. That's how I always told them apart, no matter what clothes they wore. The eyes tell the truth even when everything else lies." She pressed the photo into Amara's hand. "Keep it. Remember what I told you about twins. One good, one evil. But now you know which is which." On the drive back to her office, Amara studied the photo. Mrs. Bishop was right. Even as teenagers, the difference was there in their eyes. Alex's held a coldness that no charm could quite hide. Adrian's showed a gentleness that even years of his brother's manipulation couldn't erase. "You're falling for him, aren't you?" Teresa asked quietly. "I don't know," Amara admitted. "Everything's still so complicated." "Love usually is," Teresa smiled. "But at least this time you know who you're really falling for." Back at her office, Amara found a small package waiting on her desk. Inside was a leather-bound notebook with a note from Adrian. "I'm leaving town for a while. Need to find myself without Alex's shadow. But I want you to know that meeting you gave me the courage to finally stand up to him. Take care of Mother for me, and take care of yourself. When I come back, if you'll let me, I'd like to start over. No lies, no secrets. Just two people getting to know each other for who they really are." Amara held the notebook close, thinking about twins and truth, love and lies. Outside her window, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun, full of possibilities she'd never imagined. Before the Bishop brothers walked into her life, one story was ending, but maybe another was just beginning. 6 months passed. The media circus around the Bishop case had finally died down, replaced by newer scandals. Alex's trial was set for spring, with dozens of women coming forward to testify about his abuse. The prosecution had offered him a deal, but he refused, still claiming Adrian had set him up. Amara's design studio was thriving. The publicity had brought in more clients than she could handle, forcing her to hire 2 junior designers. Her office now occupied a sunny corner space in a downtown building, far from the Bishop corporate towers. "Your 9 o'clock is here," Teresa announced one morning. She'd officially become Amara's office manager, turning down several offers from magazines wanting insider stories about the Bishop scandal. "Mrs. Bishop?" Amara looked up in surprise. The elderly woman stood in her doorway looking stronger than she had in the hospital, but still fragile. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Mrs. Bishop said, settling into a chair. "But I have news about Adrian." Amara's heart skipped. She hadn't heard from him since he left town, though she'd kept every article about his work turning Bishop Enterprises into a foundation. "Is he okay?" "He's coming home," Mrs. Bishop smiled. "The foundation's first. Domestic violence shelter is ready to open. He wants you to handle all the design work." Amara sat back, stunned. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Because of Alex?" Mrs. Bishop reached for her hand. My dear, you can't let him steal your future the way he stole Jennifer's. It's not just Alex, Adrian and I. There's so much history. History doesn't have to be destiny. The older woman pulled out an envelope. Adrian asked me to give you this. Read it when you're ready. After Mrs. Bishop left, Amara stared at the envelope for a long time. Teresa brought her coffee and waited. Want me to read it first? Dike offered. No. Amara took a deep breath. I need to do this myself. Adrian's letter was long, his neat handwriting filling several pages. Dear Amara, these past months away have taught me so much. About myself, about Alex, about the kind of man I want to be. I've been in therapy dealing with the guilt and trauma of growing up as Alex's twin. The therapist says we enabled each other. Me by staying quiet, him by using my silence to hurt people. I think about Jennifer every day, about how I tried to protect her by watching Alex instead of going to the police. I was so used to covering for him, making excuses, that I couldn't see how dangerous he'd become until it was too late. But you changed everything. You showed me that protecting someone doesn't mean hiding the truth. It means facing it, no matter how painful. The foundation is my way of trying to make amends. Not just for Jennifer, but for all the women Alex hurt while I looked the other way. The new shelter will help hundreds of women escape domestic violence. I want it to be a place of healing and hope. That's why I need your help with the design. You understand better than anyone how to turn darkness into light. I'll be back in New York next week. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. Not as a bishop, not as Alex's twin, just as me. The real me, no masks, no pretending. I understand if you say no. What happened between us started with lies, even if they weren't mine. But I believe we could. Write a different story, one built on truth from the beginning. Take care, Adrian. Amara wiped tears from her eyes as she finished reading. Teresa hugged her silently. What are you going to do? Her friend asked. Before Amara could answer, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Alex had changed his plea to guilty, accepting a deal for 20 years in prison. He confessed to everything, Teresa read from her own phone. Jennifer's murder, the stalking, all of it. Says he doesn't want to drag the family name through a trial. More likely, he doesn't want all those women testifying, Amara said. He's still trying to control the story. She looked at Adrian's letter again, then at the growing success of her studio. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling designer dreaming of her own business. Now she had everything she'd wanted, except someone to share it with. The shelter project is exactly the kind of work I've always wanted to do, she said slowly. Helping people heal through design. And Adrian? That's more complicated. Amara touched the old photo Mrs. Bishop had given her, now framed on her desk. The teenage twins smiled back at her, their eyes telling two different stories. Love is always complicated, Teresa said, echoing her words from months ago. But at least this time you're both starting with the truth. Amara picked up her phone and typed a message to the number Adrian had included in his letter. The shelter project needs a good design team. When you're back in town, let's talk about it. Over coffee. His reply came seconds later. I know just the place, a quiet little bookstore cafe where we first really talked. Teresa read the messages over her shoulder and smiled. Well, well, looks like this story might have a happy ending after all. Maybe, Amara said, but this time we're writing it together, with no secrets between us. Outside her office window, the city stretched toward the horizon, full of new possibilities. Somewhere out there, a shelter was waiting to be transformed into a place of hope. And maybe, just maybe, two hearts were ready to try again. Not as characters in some twisted drama, but as two people choosing to be honest with each other and with themselves. 1 year to the day after the charity gala, where she'd first met the Bishop twins, Amara stood in front of the newly completed Hope Harbor Women's Shelter. The building that had once been an abandoned warehouse now shone with warmth and welcome, its walls painted in soft colors, its windows bright with light. It's perfect, Adrian said beside her. Better than I imagined. They'd spent the past 6 months working together on the shelter, turning Adrian's vision and Amara's designs into reality. Each room had been carefully planned to help women feel safe and supported as they rebuilt their lives. The first residents move in next week, Teresa said, checking her tablet. As the shelter's new administrative director, she'd thrown herself into making sure everything was ready. Mrs. Bishop arrived in her wheelchair looking frail but happy. Her health had improved since moving out of the mansion into a smaller house near Amara's studio. "Jennifer would be proud," she said, taking Adrian's hand. "This is how the Bishop name should be remembered." Inside, the shelter's main living area felt like a comfortable home, not an institution. Amara had designed cozy reading nooks, children's play areas, and private spaces for counseling sessions. "Show them the wall," Adrian urged. Amara led them to the heart of the building, where a mosaic wall sparkled with hundreds of pieces of colored glass. At its center was the shelter's motto, "Your story isn't over." "Each resident will add their own piece to the mosaic," Amara explained. "It's about taking broken pieces and making something beautiful." "Like we did," Adrian said softly. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully, over months of working together. Coffee meetings turned into dinner dates. Design discussions led to deeper conversations. They'd taken their time, making sure each step forward was built on honesty. Teresa pretended to check her phone, giving them privacy. Mrs. Bishop smiled knowingly and asked to see the garden. "I have something for you," Adrian said when they were alone. He pulled out a small wrapped package. Inside was a delicate glass butterfly, its wings made of the same colors as the mosaic wall. "Read the card," he encouraged. Amara opened the small envelope, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a single question. "Will you marry me?" She looked up to find Adrian on one knee, holding a ring that was simple and elegant. Nothing like the flashy jewelry Alex had once tried to give her. "I know our story had a rocky start," Adrian said, "but every day with you has shown me what real love looks like. Not possession, not obsession, but partnership, trust, truth." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "Are you sure? After everything that happened?" "That's exactly why I'm sure. You saw the worst of my family's secrets and stayed. You helped me face my own demons. You showed me how to stop being Alex's shadow and become my own man." From the garden doorway, Teresa and Mrs. Bishop watched with matching smiles. "Say yes already," Teresa called out. "Some of us have a shelter opening to plan." Amara laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said, "but I have one condition." "Anything." "We get married at the shelter to remind us that love should be about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down." Adrian slipped the ring on her finger. "I think Jennifer would like that." Later that evening, they gathered at Amara's apartment. Adrian, Teresa, Mrs. Bishop, and a few close friends. As they celebrated, the TV news ran a small update. Alex Bishop had begun serving his prison sentence, finally facing justice for his crimes. "A toast," Mrs. Bishop raised her glass, "to endings and beginnings, to truth winning over lies, and to love that heals instead of hurts." Amara looked around at her chosen family, Teresa, who'd stood by her through everything, Mrs. Bishop, who'd found the courage to face her own failures, and Adrian, who'd learned that being a twin didn't mean losing himself. The next morning, Amara arrived early at her studio. On her desk, next to her framed photo of the teenage twins, she placed the glass butterfly. Its wings caught the morning sun, sending rainbow reflections dancing across her walls. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer's mother. "Thank you for giving my daughter's death meaning. The shelter will help so many women." Amara touched the butterfly's delicate wings, thinking about cycles broken, wounds healed, and stories rewritten. Outside her window, the city was waking up to a new day, full of second chances and fresh starts. Year ago, she'd walked into a charity gala, hoping to build her business. Instead, she'd stumbled into a web of dark secrets and twin deceptions. But from that darkness had come light, a shelter to protect others, a love built on truth, and the knowledge that even the most twisted family legacy could be transformed into something beautiful. As she began sketching designs for the shelter's next phase, Amara smiled. Some people said you couldn't change the past, but she knew better. You could take its lessons and use them to build a better future. One day at a time, one truth at a time, one piece of broken glass turned into art at a time. And that was the greatest love story of all.